Hey guys, I'm Meteorologist Chris Tomer. Let's talk some mountain weather. Our first weekend storm was on track, and the second one looks to be as well. I'll show you my headlines. So two lows, 1022 to 1024. The second one comes in 1026 to 28. The second one does not look. Sometimes you'll get that where the second one's stronger than the first. Well, that is not the case. The second one actually looks a little bit weaker than the first. Even the first one, I mean, this is, we gotta start somewhere. It's not a blockbuster storm, but it is going to bring a nice shot of snow to at least get rid of this ridge. I mean, it spent some of its energy just getting rid of the ridge. So I think some places it will have some pretty good totals. And the bullseyes, in my opinion, up in Utah, you've got parts of the Wasatch, Big and Little Cottonwood Canyons will be a foot or more. Big Sky, Bridger Bowl should do well out of this. In Colorado, western and southwest Colorado, some of the bullseyes there, like Crested Butte down to Silverton and Wolf Creek, you're looking at probably 10 to 20 inches in some of those places. The low end of that for Crested Butte, middle range for Silverton, Purgatory, and then probably the mid to high range in Wolf Creek. And it will bring strong winds throughout the entire period. I want to show you this. This actually just happened. This is my Twitter account, by the way. You can follow me on there at Chris_Tomer. And I was off of Twitter for a while and then had to come back on. So I'm on now, but Arapahoe Basin, I just retweeted this. They're actually now officially opening this Sunday, October 21st, 23rd. The lifts start at 8:30 in the morning and run till 4. So you want to go on there and see more about that. I mean, there's no question. They see what's coming. They're going to get colder temperatures, significantly colder temperatures, wind, and of course natural snow. I'm not forecasting the biggest numbers around A Basin, Keystone, Loveland, Winter Park, but I'll show you those coming up. Here's the current setup. Big low, which has actually become somewhat cut off. Here's the other big low that's the pattern changer. It looks like the other little cutoff low is almost evaporated. There was another one out here, but this is water vapor, by the way. So oranges and reds are going to show up as drier air aloft. Let me just mark the track, the storm track on this. So this kind of is on its own flow for the time being, with the main jet, the polar jet, coming up like this and then down and around. What's going to happen is this is going to move down, and eventually there will be an opening and it will rejoin and recouple with this low and pick it up, and that becomes the second storm down the road. So the high, which is basically getting pushed now out, it's being dislodged out of the west. That's the whole point of this. I wrote about it on my blog, christomer.com. I really appreciate if you would subscribe to this. I always have the bullet points, in my opinion, the bullseyes, Utah's Wasatch, especially Little and Big Cottonwood, Colorado's western and southwest mountains, including Crested Butte, Purgatory, Silverton, and Wolf Creek, and Montana's Big Sky and Bridger Bowl. I talk about the setup, mark everything very clearly. This is the possible second storm that dives in, and I'll show you what the GFS thinks about this coming up in a second. And then I talk a lot about forecast wind gusts. I look at the Grand Teton. Some of the biggest wind gusts for that are early on. Kings Peak, and there is I actually put a graphic on here for Colorado and highlighted some of the higher peaks here in Colorado and some of the wind gusts on this thing. I mean, it's going to be strong over the Crestone peaks, down the Sand Grays. Some of those places are going to be running 80, 90 mile an hour gusts on Sunday. Oh, and these are my the Futurecast images, so let me take you to those because I've got those in here. So this is Saturday at 9 p.m. You can see the whole thing moving in with rain and snow through the Wasatch, the Tetons, Montana. That is Saturday at 9. Here is Sunday at 6 o'clock in the morning. So some of these places, the snow levels are going to start high and drop fast through the course of the storm. And that'll be the case in Colorado too. I mean, notice at 6 a.m. on Sunday, more of it is snow in Utah and Wyoming than it was Saturday night, since the level has dropped. In Colorado, the level probably starts at 9,000 and then falls to 7,000 over the course of time. So that is Sunday in the morning at 6. Here's Sunday night at 9. Most of it has turned over to snow in Colorado, all the way down to 7,000, maybe even 6,500. But everything's kind of winding down in Utah, Wyoming, and Montana. But look up to the Pacific Northwest. that is the next low. That's the second low that will swoop in, and it's going to still pretty good up in BC out of that, certainly into the interior, but the whole thing will then drop down. In fact, let me show you what the GFS, its interpretation of this is. So that's the current setup, and again, what I'm looking for on here, the colors, the blues, the greens represent the lower anomalies, lower pressure anomalies, and this is the middle of the atmosphere, and the reds and orange represent higher anomalies, so higher pressures. There's your first lobe or low coming through, 23, 20, 24, and then it moves away. Second one right there, and that one's a little further west. The GFS has always liked California a little bit more for snowfall out of this, so that's yet to be seen. I'll keep an eye on that. Depends how far west it tracks. But this is 26, 27, and 28. It slides through, and then it kind of builds in some higher pressures for a while. So those are the only two that we can really count on at this point. All right, let's look at my totals, and I did this, I divvied it up into two so you can see both phases. Here's 21 through 24. You can see the numbers, a foot to a foot and a half in the Wasatch. Even Brian Head on this gets in on this one. A foot up in Big Sky, Bridger Bowl potentially. And then Colorado, western and southwest Colorado get the most snow. Wolf Creek, Silverton, Purgatory, Crested Butte, probably the highlights there for the most snow. All right, so that's phase one. Here's phase two. This is the second one, 26 through the 28. Notice the numbers are a little bit smaller for the Intermountain West. They're pretty good up in Whistler, Blackcomb, and Baker because the whole thing's kind of dropping down from that direction. But in Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, the numbers are much smaller. 2 to 6 inches covers about 90% of the coverage there, the acreage. So there you go. That's the way it looks to me right now. Keep an eye on it. Do updates through the weekend as needed. Hope you enjoy it. Take care. Thanks for tuning in.